today we are going to move on to the next step, which is where we are removing this paper and moving on to working on just the metal itself. Okay, so one of the things that I'm looking at right now is I can see that I have pretty much all of my lines outlined with my colored pencil that I used. I want to double check and make sure that I do have everything, because once you take this off, you cannot put it back on. Okay, so you would be totally out of luck there. So I'm gonna flip it over, and it looks like, I'm just kind of double checking to see if I have those details in there. And I think I've got most everything. I do notice that I'm missing these circles right here, so I'm going to make sure I have those. And again, I'm on a piece of foam right here. Make sure that those circles are drawn in. And then these lines here are kind of missing. Okay, and so I think that's all of the lines that I was missing there. I'm gonna go ahead and just do another quick double check. Everything looks like it's pretty good to go. And so once I'm feeling pretty comfortable that I do have everything done here, I'm going to carefully untape my metal from my paper. Okay, and again, you want to be super careful not to scratch yourself. So I'm just kind of loosening this masking tape here and carefully pulling it back. Okay, you want to be super careful. Of course, you don't want to rip your paper because this is your reference, so you do need to hold on to that. Okay, so I'm just kind of carefully trying not to rip my paper. All right. Okay, I think I'm going to use a pair of scissors. And cut the tape right there. Okay, there's that one, and then I'll just go ahead and grab this little bit right here. Again, I'm being super careful with my paper and my metal. All right, now I am going to go ahead and take the tape off of the metal back here. Now at this point, the part that you wrote on, right, so this side here is your front, this is your back. If your name is on the front, we can clean that up with some alcohol in class. Some rubbing alcohol will take it away, and then we can put it on the back so we have that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I've got just the metal here, and I've got my foam plate, and I actually think I can turn this over now. Yeah, that fits in there perfectly. And I'm going to look at the different styluses that we have available. Now for this one, I want to go with something that is very, very pointed, because I'm going to go over these lines again. Okay, I just want to kind of deepen these because we don't want to work on the carving part yet without having our lines really set in. Because if we don't, we're going to end up with some spots that our line seems to kind of just disappear, and we definitely don't want that. Okay, so I'm working with this stylus right here. It has two ends to it. One you can see is pointed kind of like a pencil, and then this one is much rounder. And I'm not going to worry about this side because I'm just going over these lines here. Okay, this time though, I'm going to press a little bit harder, especially since I am using the inner part of the foam, so I can press harder without worrying about breaking the foam. Okay, so I'm just going to go over all of my lines, and I want to try to not move so slow or so fast that I mess up. I want to work at a good pace. I do have a little bit of kind of a pucker or a pinch here, and so I might be able to work that out a little bit later. I'm just going to kind of do my best, but I don't want to accidentally poke through my aluminum. Okay, so if you look here, I kind of press that down, and then on the back, I can feel it's a little bit better. I still think I need to go a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down. I'm using a little bit more pressure. Like this. Okay. Okay, now on the back, I can feel a huge difference between like these lines and this right here. This has more of a point feel to it instead of being flatter like this. Okay, and so I'm going to do this all the way around for every single line that I have on here. Okay, so again, I'm just kind of working through I'm using a decent amount of pressure, show the copper who's boss without poking through. Okay, and it's always good to go back and kind of check yourself, you know, so you might, until you kind of get the hang of it, go back and check. Okay, this is a little bit better. I'm gonna go back over this spot again, right here, press a little bit harder. Okay, and I'm gonna work through these steps here and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I have worked on my tracing over my lines again from the front. So this is the front side. The back is the one that has my name on it. Again, remember our paper was on here originally. We traced here. This is going to be the front. Now, when you are working on this next step, which is popping out your different sections, I want you to think and plan on either working those sections inward or upward, right? So outward or inward, okay? And that's going to be kind of like convex versus concave, okay? Remember, a concave means that it goes down, it kind of cuts into a shape, right? Imagine if you were digging into, you know, the ground, versus convex, which is going the opposite direction. It's like a hill, right? As opposed to a crater, okay? And so you're going to choose how you want things to go. So on the front, if I start popping things here on the front, they're going to go inward, right? They're going to go down, kind of like you're digging a hole, okay? Now, if I want something to come out, I'm going to flip it over to the back and I'm going to pop it. So I'm still going to press down, but then whenever I flip it over to the correct side, it's going to come upward at me, okay? And you want to think about this because when we add in ink, the parts that are concave are going to catch the most ink, okay? So these parts right here that show up as being darker, kind of where those shadows are concave, right? They're dug down in there, okay? And so these are things that they did from the front. They kind of popped these sections out from the front, and then the parts that don't have that darker color on them, right? The parts that are, you know, more of the shiny copper are convex, right? So they come upward. And so when they created that, they flipped it over and they pressed down, and then when they flipped it back, it was popped upward, okay? Same thing with this one. So think about where you want shadows to go for your design, okay? Think about how you want that to look, right? So they had on this part right here, the section's black, you know? And so they wanted to make sure that it had a similar look on the copper itself. So they made sure to press down from the front on this side. And then this little ridge area that's green down here, that ridged and copper colored up here, they did from the back, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and look at that in practice, okay? So I have my aluminum here. This is the front side. And I think I want this to come upward towards me. Okay, I want this to have kind of a three-dimensional effect to it. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. And I'm going to choose the right tool. I can do one of the ones that has kind of a point to it. This one has, it's rounded here, but then kind of flat, like this. There's also ones that have a flatter edge here, and then this part is very round. So there's kind of a lot of different variations. There's also pieces that look like this, which can be kind of nice depending on what you're going for. You might see some old paintbrush ends that work out pretty well. Okay, but I think I'm gonna go in with this one first. Okay, when you're popping out anything, whether it's from the front of it or the back, whether you're making it convex or concave, you want to first go around and kind of outline without going over that line. So we're inside this line here, and I'm not pressing as hard as I did on the front when I was outlining it. I'm just kind of going through here, and I am coloring up against it. You want to color inside the lines only. If you go over this, it will press that little hill that we have downward, and you'll lose that line, okay? Physics are weird, I know. And it can be a little bit confusing at first, especially if you haven't done this in a while or if this is your first time doing this. Okay, but I'm almost kind of outlining this. And what I'm doing is helping to really strengthen that boundary, right? Like the squiggly line here, on the front, I press downward, and on this side, I'm kind of going next to it and emphasizing that curve. Okay, so I'm doing that all the way around. And then I'm going to go in with the wider end, and I'm going to start slowly at first. Okay, so I'm going to use the flat end for a little bit. And I'm going to just slowly start popping this out. Okay, and I'm using just a little bit of pressure at first until I get used to it, but I'm still making sure that I go slowly enough that I can stay inside of the lines very easily. Okay, because like I said, if you go over these, it kind of erases your lines, but not in the totally erased way and cleared out, you know, so you can't use it as an eraser. It flattens it, but you can still see it, but not in a good way. It's complicated. Okay, so I'm kind of going through here. Okay, and then when I flip it over, on this side, you can see that it's starting to pop out just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go back over here on this side, and I can use the rounded part. Actually, I'm going to use this little kind of corner to kind of get in this section right here. So I maintain that point that I have. I'm going to do this side too. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of go through and emphasize the outer edge. And I'm going to work my way inwards. I'm working from the boundary, the farthest part out, and I'm working my way inward. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing along here. I'm really emphasizing this part, just like this. Right. Okay, and then I can work more towards the middle. Okay, and I can pick up my speed just a little bit towards the middle, just a little. Okay, and then I flip it over, and then I can start to see that this side is starting to look very popped. Okay, it might be kind of hard to see in the video. Oh, there we go. That's not too bad. You can kind of see how it's starting to pop out. And once I work on other things as well, this will really, really start to, okay. I do have a texture in here that I don't love. So I'm going to go through, and I think I'm going to try out one of these rounded pieces here. And I'm going to kind of just work the opposite direction that I see. Kind of, it's kind of going this way, so I'm going to go in the opposite direction there to kind of smooth it out. Okay, and I can always come back and add a little bit more smoothing later. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's helping. All right. Sometimes using a kind of rounded motion helps too, right? And then sometimes people like to go in with like these to help smooth it out, right? You can kind of choose what works best for you in that moment. Okay, but you can also always come back and add a little bit more to it. Okay, now for my brush, I think that I want the bristles to have a lot of shading to them, kind of like whenever we add the ink onto it. And so what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead, redraw this line a little bit here. Okay, for this part, I think I'm going to carve parts of this a little bit inward, like so. And I think what I want to do for this part is I actually think I'm going to kind of widen the lines that I have. So I'm going to use this end here. I'm going to try that out, see how I like that. Okay. I'm kind of just going through. I'm working on that, and then I can check and see how textured it is on the back and see if I want to add more or you know, if I'm content with that, I think I'm going to add just a little bit more. Okay, and so for my handle, I think I also want that to kind of pop upward. And for this little textured area here, I think I'm going to do kind of a mix of it. So some of it's going to be going downward, some of it's going to be coming upward. And so for that, I can kind of go through and press these down. I think the top and bottom row are going to be kind of coming upwards. So I'm just kind of reworking those lines, and then on this side, I'm going to use that pointed end, and I'm going to be very careful to stay within those little lines that I created. So I get a nice textured effect. So I'm just coloring really small in those little sections that I made. And since I want the middle line to kind of be the opposite, I think on this one, I'm going to go through, and actually here, we'll go on this side. I'm going to widen these a little further, and I'm going to press kind of in the middle of these. So I'm kind of coloring it in almost and pressing downward. And remember, you got to stay inside your lines. Okay, and I think it's good to work from the middle outward. That way, if you do kind of press anything here, it doesn't really matter because you haven't worked on popping it out or in yet. Okay, so far I've gotten my paint part done up here. I've got these bristles done. I might go through and vary them just a smidge more. And then I've done this part, and so the last thing that I would do is I could work on this part, and then I'll work on the outer thing. Okay, so that is what it looks like. Okay, so that's what it looks like whenever you are working on this. You've done all of your lines, and then you can start popping either from the front or the back. Okay, if you want it to pop upwards, you will pop on the back. If you want it to be concave, you want it to go inward, like you're carving into it. Okay, then you're going to do that from the front side. Okay, and then if at any point you need to kind of strengthen your lines, right? Like, you know, maybe I need to go back through and kind of strengthen this line. I can do that on the front where I originally put those lines at. Okay, again, I would work from the middle and then work your way out, but you're going to spend a few days working on this. It is a process. You don't want to rush it, especially for all of this detail around here. Okay, so you'll be working on that with a good pace, but not too fast. We just don't want to, you know, fall asleep at the wheel here. Okay, so I will see you guys for the next video.